What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MMA Ground. Well, it's not the Ground and Pound. It's
Not the
the
Ground and Pound. That's a
it's not the
premium
Ground and
show,
Pound.
Mike.
I'm
We're
sorry.
not doing that show.
I'm trying. It's because of the lack of content that you can put on for this crappy card. This is the MMA.
All right,
before
start
lock.
over.
Okay, no problem, Rob. Listen, we talk pre-show. It's not the best card in the world. This is the Crunch Time MMA. And that's how my brain is spinning to start this one, Blender. It's a mess. We have our first real mispriced guy in a long, long time. What do you think of this one? It's a crap show.
It's one of these cards. It's a Vegas card, right? UFC Vegas 72. So it's like, no one's going to be here. So let's just throw together some people that half of these people probably shouldn't be in the UFC. We have late minute replacements. We have newcomers. We have people that are there. We have old people. We have no cardio people. We have quick KO people. It's like to trust anyone on this slate is, I mean, you could poke holes in everyone on this slate, and you could also show how anyone on this slate can win, right? Obviously, some are lower probability than others, but I mean, there's a case to be made for any one of the fighters on the slate, and there's also a case to be made while some of the favorite fighters just lose. I mean, like, not even like, oh, they win and put up a low score. It's like, no, they just literally lose.
I almost feel like that every fight is going to score well, but it's going to be really nailing down which ones don't score well on this slate. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think I at least always talk about on the Friday DFS pregame show, which you should check out. Feel free to go and watch that at 3x speed if you want before the card. But the two main contextual variables that you have to look at for every MMA card when you're playing large field GPPs is the size of the slate and the spread of the fights. Okay, because essentially with so many limited options, even on a 15-fight card, that still means there's only 30 options. Like your goal is to make the nut lineup. What is the best possible lineup, the highest possible score? Now, some weeks no one plays the nut lineup, right? But on an 11-fight card, it's much more likely that the nut lineup's going to win only because there's only 22 fighters to choose from. So on smaller cards, the nut lineup is more likely to be reached. Number two is that duplication of well, we'll go into the spreads of the fights also. Duplication is going to be much higher because there's only 22 options. And win probability, just winning a fight, is worth more than on a 15-fight card. It doesn't mean, yeah, sure, I'd love 120 points from a fighter. Yeah, I'll prioritize that. But just simply getting 6 winners is, I mean,
huge. That's the whole
it's
thing.
huge. It's much huger than a 15-fight card. Some $7,200 underdog wins and puts up 72 points. Easily misses out on the optimal most weeks. 72 points out of an underdog this late, mate. That as long as you have 6 winners and you're good. I almost feel like this is like a golf type of mentality when the cards get smaller. Is that just aim to get 6 winners and hope that they score well, type of thing. And then also the spreads of the fights. Most of these fights are pick'ems. I mean, really, from 8,800 down, from a Rosa down, right? Outside of 3 fights, these are nearly pick'ems. I mean, the 60-40s at best. And then even at the 9K range, Vieira's minus 225, Egger's minus 305, Baraglio's minus 335. I mean, these aren't minus 500, minus 800 favorites or anything like that. The inside the distance lines are actually pretty good on this slate. So it's kind of like there are a lot of fights where it's a 60-40 at best and most likely doesn't go to decision. Good luck figuring out who's going to win, right? Who's going to finish the other person. And because of the weaknesses and strengths of some of these fighters, like I said, you can make a case. You can make a case for any of these fighters to finish the other fighter for the most part. There's some little outliers that I would be surprised at a finish. But I've already made I'm making 3 small field lineups and 40 large field lineups. And I'm leaving salary on the table in a lot of my large field lineups.
I'm fading the main event. I'll tell you right now. I'm more opt to fade. I know you shouldn't, but to just inherently be different, I think there's some obvious builds that can fade the main event too.
Well, fade the main event, or I think when you're playing large field GPPs, instead of looking at like ownership sum, it's more and more important on the smaller cards to look at combinatorial ownership, right? Combinations of fighters that you're gonna see overwhelming amounts of. Like you're gonna see
Barajo,
Vieira, Simone and Song in the main
Quinlan.
event, Josh Quinlan, Journey Newsom. Like if you're playing like 4 of those guys in your lineup, like
Toss
start
those out.
unless I mean, yeah, if you want to chop first place 174 ways for $800, I mean, like it's negative EV long run, but I mean you can. So to me, I built 40 lineups that I could still play fighters that are high owned, but I'm just not playing combinations of them together. Like I'm just refusing to play like 4 40+% owned fighters in the lineup. I think 3 40+% owned players and fighters in the lineup is still going to be like, you're going to still get an over 20 type of dupe. So like you're going to have, if you're going to really group out these popular combinations, you're going to be forced to make some lineups that you look at and go, I'm not very comfortable with this, but I'm just making 40 of those. So it's like, okay, I'm how much uncomfortable, how many lineups do I need to have Haley Cohen in, right? Doesn't mean I have to have 20 out of 40, but I'll have 3 or 4, right?
Yep.
Do I really feel all that comfortable with Cody Brundage against Rodolfo Vieira? No, right? Do I really feel like I mean, some of these fights are just like this Rogerio de Lima Cortez Acosta fight.
Trash.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a trash fight, but I mean, it's a lot of these fights are going to be sloppy, low level. I mean, across the board. I mean, literally across the board. I think more than half the fights are going to look like, why is this a UFC fight?
And you'll see like a lot of second round finishes or third round on this particular card too. So I think like, you know, we'll get in the X's and O's in a minute, but it's like Rogerio de Lima. That guy's expected to be higher owned. He could just have a great first round and then get, you know, pitter pattered for the second and third or knocked out. So like, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. This MMA Crunch Time brought to you by FanDuel. You can sign up for FanDuel Sportsbook, an illegal sports betting state, and take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get a bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply for this one. Definitely a live betting card. Exactly the X's and O's I was just talking about. I mean, that's one that I looked at and I'm like, Rogerio de Lima early in the week, Blender, when we did the Ground and Pound podcast with Liam, he was expected to be like 40 plus owned. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a blender type of spot. I'm like that. If he is, it's going to be under because
right. No. You're bringing up the guy that I have the most. He's my highest exposed fighter. Yeah. I don't like it. It's 11 fight card. This guy, the cardio. Yeah. And also brutal. He quits. I mean, like it's a if he loses his cardio, he just like he's given up on fights. But the thing is that he's facing Waldo Acosta, who is like, he's the least technical heavyweight there. I mean, he's undefeated, but I don't know who the hell he's beating. But like, he doesn't have any ground game whatsoever, and De Lima does, right? But he may only have 5 minutes of cardio, and then De Lima's pretty much only lost by submission, and it's not like Cortez Acosta is going to submit him. So like, you're really just betting on, is De Lima going to be able to win 2 rounds with card? But I mean, but the upside, the thing on this card is that I'm with only 22 fighters to choose from. If I'm going to lean in a direction, I'm going to lean towards someone that fights in a way that gives them the longest window to score a lot of points. Yep. So like, De Lima has wrestling upside. Cortez Acosta is just knockout.
Second and third.
So like
second and third round, likely.
Right.
A decision with a lot of volume. And at the heavyweight division, you can't be banking on 150 strikes. It's just not possible. But right. I'll tell you, of the 3 people around Cortez Acosta, I mean, I'm kind of grouping one of these fighters to do well as Cortez Acosta, Durden, and Padilla. Those are the guys that are not the Journey Newsom, the value play, which we'll talk about.
We'll talk about. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Let's talk about Journey Newsom, the Marcus McGee Journey Newsom fight. Yeah. Obviously, Brian Kelleher had to withdraw. I mean, he had an injury. He wanted to compete through it, and UFC said no, which is amazing to me because typically they let anyone fight for any reason. So Kelleher was supposed to be 8,900. And now Marcus McGee comes in on 3 days' notice. Journey Newson is 7,300, and he's a minus 150 favorite with a plus 170 inside the distance line. McGee at 7,200. If Newson, to put things into perspective of how I'm approaching this, people are going to view this as a quote free square.
Yep.
And yes, he has line value. Absolutely. He has ITD value. He's plus 170 inside the distance. Sure, I get it. But if Journey Newson, Mike, if I told you, Journey Newson, if we reprice this slate, right, Journey Newson would be like 8,500.
Yep.
He would be 85 or 8,600. He would be low owned at that. I mean, like he would be like, right?
I mean, he'd match like the field.
He'd be like 18, 20% owned, right? I mean, he'd be like, oh, why am I playing Journey Newson over DeLima, Quinlan, Simone, right? Arosa even at 8,800. I mean, you'd look at that.
It's not like he's a killer. I mean, we're talking about Journey Newsom, who I guess he's incorporated a little bit of takedowns in his last, Fernie Garcia fight. And then he gets out grappled by Morozov. DeGrandi Costa getting knocked out in the first round. This guy has been finished in the first round many other times. And Marcus McGahee, I mean, he's an MMA lab guy. It's not like this kid's coming from, he's not a kid, he's 32, same age as me, but he pushes forward. This guy's got a great fun style. Like, he's going to have a lot of fun fights later on in his UFC career under a full camp. But what are we going to get out of him? That's the problem. It's like Journey Newsom should go out there and probably grapple. You know what I mean, Jordan? And it's like,
yeah, but we
probably won't.
How many times do we say this is what the guy should do, and he never does it?
Exactly. But if they stand and bang for 3 rounds, there's potential that this one could just like slow down once, McGee slows down second and third round, and it's a kickboxing fight for the second and third round. So, like, I mean, I think there's some bustability that people aren't factoring in on this fight.
Absolutely. And obviously, if you're going to go with the leverage approach, I mean, McGee gives you more relative value than Newson, right? If Newson's going to be, I have Newson at 40% owned, right? He could be higher. I mean, he could end up being even higher than that.
High stakes.
I have McGee at 20%, and it just on a card where especially when I'm leaving money on the table, the way the fight styles are, just that, like, dude, I'm leaving 1,000 on the table as it is. So, like, if Journey Newsom was 8,300, I probably wouldn't be rostering him then. So, like the price doesn't matter that much to me, and I think he's gonna be a bit overowned, right? He's not heavily overowned. I have his efficient ownership at like 32%.
I actually think McGahee, this is maybe a bold take, would probably more win a decision over Newsom. And it's because he's got volume. I've seen a lot of his fights. He throws unorthodox, like elbows, weird stuff when he's in the clinch. So, like, he might out-volume Newsom. Newsom might have the cleaner strikes, but there could be like a split decision. I mean, there's going to be something crazy that happens on this card. We already know that. Like, I don't know. I agree with you.
The problem with Newsom from a DFS lineup construction perspective, right? Remember, I don't have takes on the fights. All I'm doing is looking at numbers. What's higher owned, lower owned? How do I get less duped? That type of stuff. That when you plug in Journey Newsom at 40% in your lineup, it's like, once you start plugging in Newsom and Quinlan and Baralia, with like what do you expect? I mean, like, you're way too heavily duped. So it's like, okay, I'm going to play Journey Newsom, but you got to play him in like a Charles Johnson, Jake Collier type of lineup. No main event in that line, like
couple women.
Right. I see more paths to first place by not playing Newsom and playing McGee at half the ownership than I do.
And they're $100 difference. It's not like you have a price difference where Newsom's like 79 and then McGahee's 73 either. You know, it is a different dynamic.
Right. And this fight is a 60-40. I mean, we're not talking about, Journey Newsom 7,300 and a minus 500 favorite. No, he's minus 150 currently. McGee is plus 140, plus 220 inside the distance. I mean, McGee has one of the better inside the distance lines, even compared to some favorites on this card. So, I mean, I wouldn't call you crazy if you just like, I'm going to make 50% Newsom lineups. I'm going to make 50% McGee lineups and then go from there. Just that The Newsom lineups have to look different, and the McGee lineups don't. My McGee lineups could have Ricky Simone in it. My McGee lineups could have Rodolfo Vieira in it. My McGee lineups could have, mid-range Martin Boudet in it. It's I could play 40+% owned fighters in that lineup, and I feel more comfortable than playing Newsom. If I only had to choose between 40+% owned fighters, right? We have Baralho, Vieira, Quinlan. Right? I got Quinlan, Simone, Song. It'll be around 40%, and Newsom. Like, what two would I rather play? Like, I choose to play like Vieira, Baralho, Simone. I prefer those three for wrestling upside that I do playing Newsom, who theoretically has wrestling upside. But I mean, to me, the price doesn't matter. It's an 11-fight card. I'm already leaving money on the table. So like what? To me, the ownership is a cost. And I mean, that's how I don't have no Newsom lineups. I think I have 9 out of 40. But those lineups have like.
Are you willing to fade the Newsom McGahee?
Oh yeah, I have lineups that don't have either. I mean, like.
And then how are you building it? Would it be more stars and scrubs, or is it going to be like grabbing?
No, more. Most of my lineups are mid-range. Most of my lineups are building. Where maybe Vieira is the highest priced fighter in my lineup, or Arose is the highest priced fighter in my lineup. It's more of like if I go to some of my lineups, I mean, I think I could have I'll have a Rosa, DeLima, Quinlan, Simon, right? A Bidet, McGee lineup, right? I'm only playing like one low underdog like that. And then just, because I see upside in all of these. I mean, outside, I think the two favorites, truthfully, the two favorites that have the least amount of upside are Charles Johnson and Jake Collier.
Yeah. Rosa is one of those fighters that's actually sneaky fantasy relevant, Blender.
Yes.
When I look at him, I'm like, this guy sucks. But he's either getting knocked out or he's somehow sneaking out like 90 to 100 points in his wins. I mean, he's got volume. He's got a little bit of sneaky grappling.
Right, and especially this, to me, that's the fight I'm the most exposed on. Rosa Padilla. I have. If I just even take a look, I have my 40 lineup set up here. Out of my 40 lineups, I have 45% Arosa and 38% Padilla. I think outside of the main event, that's the most important fight on the slate because I see the winner scoring well. Even if it goes to decision, I think it scores well.
I don't actually think people necessarily. I know that it's saying Padilla 25% owned. That's because of the money line. The inside the distance is there to back it as well. But like I see people going to a Cortez Acosta, a Durden spot. So like I like that take that Arosa and Padilla fight because the pace is going to be there. The pace of Cortez Acosta can be crappy down the stretch, and then Durden and Johnson, that fight's going to be competitive, which means there might not be a ton fantasy-wise, Blender. Like, I think the pace flyweight inherently going to be there. But when it's competitive and it's a close fight, it sucks all that fantasy relevance out of there. Like, I think a lot of people are playing Durden for the wrestling upside, but he's not really a great wrestler. He's someone that's willing to spam takedowns. Mm-hmm. Charles Johnson is essentially a one-dimensional striker, but Charles Johnson is probably a better all-around MMA fighter than Cody Durden. I don't see this is the fight I see one of the two fights I don't see it's unlikely to be a finish. I mean, you could tell by obviously the betting lines. So I have very little of the Johnson Durden fight, and I'll let 28% of the field play Durden, but he's plus 450 inside the distance, which isn't very great for the numbers that we have down there. But in a decision, if Durden lands 4 or 5 takedowns and Johnson can't get up, right? It doesn't mean that Durden's grounding and pounding him out or anything, but Durden could get 100 points in a decision. It seems like you'd rather play.
People are playing him.
You'd probably rather play Charles Johnson for knockout to kill that ownership, correct?
Yeah, but Charles Johnson is still going to. I mean, I still have him as overowned at even at 16-18%.
That's what's
just see at 87. See, the thing is that it's a price thing. It's that at 8,700, for him to score 100 points, Like, how does that happen outside of a first round KO? Like at
Fluke,
least
multiple
Durden,
knockdown.
right? I guess so, but he's done
Maybe.
maybe, right? I think I have one Johnson lineup.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's
Let
it.
me tell you the two fights that probably don't have a good pace, Blender, and you could probably agree. Jake Collier, Budai, Horth, and Cohen. Those are the two fights that I think are red flag, slow pace. Like the heavyweight fight has finishing equity, obviously, right? But this Horth fight and Cohen, I mean, it's really on Horth to push the pace in this one. Cohen likes to stall it out against the cage, not do anything. Which sneakily, people don't think of this, and I don't even know if you would, but Cohen, like that when you clinch against the cage, you're getting that control time. But it's like she's not striking. You want a fighter, once they get that control time, to be hitting, elbows and close, little touches, right? She doesn't do that. It would just be clinch against the cage.
But you know who does in that range? Martin Budai.
Yeah, which I think is why I
think people. I mean, he's going to be owned. I have him at 26% owned. Like, take a look at his past two fights. I mean, he put up 91 points without a takedown. I mean, like, he had 7 minutes of control time because of the cage clinching and everything. So, like, plus 215 inside the distance. The line has moved in his favor, so he's now the minus 122 favorite. That's why, like, I have a lot of Martin Budai, and I prefer Budai over Cohen because the inside the distance lines are dramatically different.
I mean, you're talking about Jake Collier. This guy, I mean, he's a punching bag at this stage. That fight against Huggy Bear, the Chris Barnett. Oh my God, that was one of the most infuriating ones ever. He had him dead to rights. Then he gasses out and he gets destroyed by one of the worst heavyweights in the division. And
truthfully, Mike, shouldn't Collier not even be a heavyweight?
Yeah, super heavyweight. I agree with you.
I'm just saying that his frame, like, he seems like the type of person that should, not only not be at heavyweight, may even be should be at 185.
Yeah. Oh, guaranteed. He's a smaller guy, and Buday's going to have volume. Like I do not understand why Buday's not a higher favorite, like minus 175.
No, well, because Bidet sucks also. I mean, dude, look at this card. These people all suck. Bidet has weaknesses. All these people do, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Collier, if he gets the knockout early, he's going to kill a lot of Bidet's lineup. So, like, that's
but its ITD line is less than Charles Johnson. I mean, that's how I view it.
How are you handling Jamie Lynn Horth, a newcomer against Cohen, who Cohen's had a ton of fights scheduled? We've probably broken down a bunch of hers. And nothing's come. And Cohen just likes to clinch against the cage. But Horth, on the other hand, hasn't fought in quite a while. 5-0, but nobody wants to fight this girl. She's just an absolute killer. All finishes in her 5 fights.
Plus 190 inside the distance. I mean, I don't even care at this point. You're going to tell me that there's going to be it's not like I have a lot. I mean, I have her at like 26% owned because it's an 11 fight card. Everyone's going to be owned to some extent.
Yeah,
but no, I have no problem with Horth. I've Horth. I'd much rather play Horth than Cohen for only a $400 price difference.
And we love low-level women's MMA, don't we? I mean, some weird stuff happens. I mean, and there's a lot more strikes too. Like, I expect the volume to be there for Horth as well. I mean, I don't necessarily think Horth will score well over 3 rounds, right? It's more so in a second round.
Does she need to, finish. Mike? Dude, an 80-point win could be fine. I mean, it's an 11-fight card. Just give me give me a win, and I'll hope for the best.
Yep. And you kind of grouped the same people I was grouping, the inside the distance lines guys like Quinlan, Vieira, Birajo. Those are the 3 that I like. But I feel like more often than not, you'd probably try to play against one of those ones. And why would it not be Trey Waters at 7,700, who is pretty low owned? I mean, this guy's got a great frame. He's got like a 7-inch reach advantage. Last time I looked, I'll have to look again. The problem is these late notice. It's such an ugly card. Quinlan, every time he lands, he's knocking people out. But we haven't seen this guy go past the 2nd and 3rd round, Blender.
Also, Waters is going to be like, what? He's have like a 7-inch reach advantage or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 5.
Quinlan's the prototypical type of guy where, he's 30. I have him at 38 to 40% owned. like his path to 100 points is a first round knockout. I mean, he's really not like what, how multiple knockdowns. I mean, Trey
Maybe
Waters is plus
grapple. I
200
don't know.
inside the distance. So like, I see it. I see it's. I mean, I have Quinn. I mean, I have everyone. So I mean, to me, Quinlan's ITD line is much better, right? But I have that fight in 56% of my lineups. I mean,
You
I think that
kind of
that
have
fight's
to.
unlikely to go. Go to decision also, but I don't think Quinlan should be twice his own as Waters.
I agree with that because it's like, what does a second round finish for Quinlan look like? Is it just your 82 points? Is it your 85? It's going to be multiple knockdowns to get you there. I mean, maybe they can get bailed out by that. But I think Trey Waters could pitter patter. A decision win for Trey Waters looks pretty damn good, right?
I don't know. I mean, dude, if this fight goes to decision, both fighters bust.
Yeah. Well, if Waters is like 71.
Right, but he's 77. Right. So like
yeah.
65-point win ain't gonna cut it to me. But still, hey, it's an 11-fight card. I'll take 60. If you give me 65 points and I get the cash, sure, okay, that's fine, right?
Yeah, and Vieira and Barajo. Now that we're talking about the inside the distance, Barajo is an interesting case, and I want to know what you think on this. 9,500, most expensive fighter on the card. Most people like to just jam that play blindly. This guy doesn't have striking metrics, Blender. He's just going to look for a submission. He's going to get the control time, which is great, but 10 minutes of control time with no, striking into it, trying to look for the knockout. I think you're going to need multiple takedowns from Barajo, where Vieira, my sneaky play on the whole entire slate is Vieira by knockout. That was like plus 900 early in the week, down a little bit.
I'd be interested to see that. That's
it's Brundage. It's a good take because Brundage, all of his losses, I think, have been by knockout. And this is a guy who Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is out of this world.
So are you saying TKO KO?
Oh, yeah. Pitter.
Okay. I thought you meant knockout.
No. Once he's
it could be a ground and pound stoppage, and that's a TKO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
now that makes a little bit more sense. Because I'm like, just Vieira by pure knockout? It's like,
no.
Like, I don't know about that.
If the BJJ guy gets a pure knockout, that would be impressive. But Vieira, on the other hand, this is a guy who is a massive favorite, lost to Fluffy Hernandez in embarrassing fashion because he's a jiu-jitsu ace. I can see people going to Brundage. I'm surprised the ownership isn't higher on him, Blender, because of, narrative-wise, right? We've seen Vieira crap in the apple pie.
Yeah, but that was against better competition. I think Brundage is a big step down.
It is.
To me, Vieira, I prefer playing Vieira over Baraglio, personally. I think Vieira has more path. The thing about Baraglio that is infuriating for DFS players is that I think Baraglio wins this fight. And I think it's quite likely that he has 2 rounds of control. The problem is that he just hangs out on people's backs and just goes. I mean, dude, that's why. I mean, he's like the nerd Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. Like he's one of those. He's one of the few guys on this whole, maybe on the whole slate, where you go, I know what this guy is going to do. His fight IQ is very high, and he fights to win, regardless of if it's by finish or not. It seems like the type of guy that you're like, I wish you were dumber, right?
Yeah,
I see what you're doing, right? I see what you're doing. Fights. You're going to score 85 points in an easy win via decision, but doesn't help us in DFS. And also, long run in the UFC, it doesn't help him really becoming like a name. No one's going to be like, oh, I want to see some more Caio Baraglio fights.
I mean, they have him in a prime position, co-main event. Like, okay, like they're trying to push him. And again, he just doesn't strike. So it's just control time is going to do great in cash games, but not great for a ceiling.
Dude, this guy, he could get knocked out. I mean, Ola Jacek's path is just the problem with Baraglio. I mean, it's not a problem. I think Baraglio is a very good fighter. He doesn't get hit much. He has that karate stance. He keeps his distance, and he typically is successful at most of his takedowns. And it's very hard to get up when he takes you down, and then you're just stuck on the ground for 5 minutes. I mean, like Ola Jacek's got he's got one punch I mean, but Olajaychuk has one punch power.
Definitely.
Baralho has to make, to me, I see the only way Olajaychuk wins this fight is Baralho makes a mistake.
Yeah, definitely. We have about 12, 13 minutes before lock. Everything status quo at the moment. Make sure you guys are getting your questions in the YouTube chat. We'll prioritize anybody in our Discord. One fight we haven't talked about, the main event, Blender, and Styles. Simon's been that takedown guy against a guy in Song Yadong who I guess now has 5-round experience, right? Lost. But on the feet, I favor Song very much on the feet.
Obviously,
and
I mean,
it's like, what does a 4th or 5th round finish look like for Song? Like I'm trying to visualize, because Simon could zap a lot of fantasy goodness out of this fight. But at 8,400, it's like, that's a great price for a power grappler.
Oh, yeah. If Simon wins by decision, he's going to be optimal.
Guaranteed.
Right. I mean, like, if he wins by decision, which means he's won at least 3 rounds. And for him to win rounds, it's going to be with grappling. It's not going to be he outlanded someone. So, like, 3 rounds, even if he misses takedowns, doesn't get a single takedown in 2 rounds, he probably still ends up with 5 or 6 takedowns, 8 to 9 minutes of control time, right? Some ground strikes. I mean, Simon can easily put up 100 points in a decision. Song Yadong he's
limited.
He's knockout dependent, and like he could put up 100 points in the first 2 rounds, and outside of the first 2 rounds, it's hard for me to see him putting up 100 points. But it's also a 5-round fight. If let's say Song Yadong wins a decision, right? 3 rounds, 4 rounds, he could put up 85, 90, and at 7,800 on an 11-fight card, that could still be enough. If this was a 15-fight card, I'd be much less likely to play Song Yadong, right? But an 11-fight card at 7,800, what do I need? And also, Ricky Simon has been cracked, okay? Ricky Simon comes in for a takedown. I mean, he could get knocked out in 2 minutes.
Uriah Faber.
Right. He got KO'd by Uriah Faber, and he's in a nursing home somewhere.
No, you know who he's coaching? Song Yadong.
Oh, well.
Narrative Street. I know you love your narratives. Like, the student can come out and have the same game plan against Simon and crack him. But yeah, I wish it was a 15-fight card because I'd be more opt to fade and pray that, I don't know, Simon takes down early and then Song wins a striking battle down the stretch. But you're almost forced into it. Like you said, either of these guys will score well over 5 rounds if it goes to a decision. Anything we've missed on this? I mean, I think we're...
Well, Variance has to go my side on these past couple of slates. Dude, I had Semmelsberger, and I thought he almost got a quick win bonus and then lost 30-27 with 2 knockdowns. I mean,
what was the heavyweight? What was the heavyweight fight that Usman? Usman just blanketed Taffa.
Right.
And I mean, Usman got there, right? He was right at like 10x, like just under 10x. And it was like, if Taffa had got that knockout, oh my God, it would have been 110.
Right. I had lineups that looked good if it wasn't for one fight that looked like I should have gotten 120 points. The only fight we haven't talked about, I think, is the Edgar Alexieva fight. Do you know anything about Irina Alexieva? Because it seems like no one does.
No.
Other than she's a judo, she's skilled in judo to some extent, and I think there's like limited fight tape, and she looked awful. She missed weight, looked awful on the scale. I'm not a huge fan of Stephanie Egger, but she does fight smart. I mean, like, I view her as a smart, like, she's not going to want to get into in any fight into a 3-round stand-up fight, right? Although against Irina Alexieva, maybe she's the better striker also. I have to think that with no Alexieva has like no pedigree. Like,
I don't know.
Should she be a 3-1? Should she be the 3-1 favorite here? Is it going to be the type if Alexieva? I'm using your logic, Mike.
Yep.
If they're both judo people,
and it strikes,
right? Could this be the type of thing where neither of them could get takedowns or anything, and
it ends up
it's
just
possible.
Just
negates each other?
That's 100%. That's why I think it I know you don't put first category, second category, but it kind of falls in that second category because it's like Edgar should win the fight. She's already made the walk, right? Like that's where they're making her a big favorite here, right?
Well, she's also
She has
beaten people that are better than her, just a newcomer with almost no, I mean, with nothing. I mean, literally, where does she come? It's like, is she a creative player? I mean,
well, I made this narrative the other day. Is like, rarely do you see somebody come from Bellator into the UFC. Usually it's, okay, you make your debut in the UFC off the regionals, then you bust in the UFC, then you go to the regional Bellator scene. It's like, she doesn't have vicious striking. You know what I mean? Like I almost feel like Irina will probably try to go for takedowns and not be successful. And then it turns out to be a sloppy striking affair. And then there's not a lot to be had. But in a dominant Edgar win, that's going to be interesting for the context of the slate. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, she could probably go deep into the first round or even deep into the second round and get little pitter-patter strikes from top plus control and compound scoring. Like, I see her as a very interesting play. It's just, I can't get behind Arena. I agree with you. It's like, how does anybody click her button on this slate?
other than the fact, I mean, 6,800, and you never know, it's low-level women's MMA. But I mean, I think the variance in this is that Alex Ziva could be nowhere near UFC caliber, and Edgar destroys her. Like, I like looking for those fights where it's like, okay, Borrello, Olajaychuk. Olajaychuk is UFC caliber. For the extent of this card, at least.
Yeah.
Right? I take a look at some of these fighters going, yeah, Marcus McGee, in comparison, yeah, he should be. I mean, I see Trey Waters. I mean, okay, I have no problem with that. Fernando Padilla, no problem with Waldo Cortez Acosta, sloppy, but he's fine. Brundage is low level, but he's there. I mean, this girl could just be like, I mean, this could be
like the female GOAT. Okay, she could be Eileen Perez. Do you remember Edgar exposing her on the mat? It was like immediately 2 takedowns. What did she end up scoring in that spot? Edgar in that win. It ended up being 110 points. That's what it could look like more often than not, I would imagine, because you expose her, you break her, and then Arena's like, well, I can't survive. Maybe it's just raining down punches from top. Or
to put things in perspective, Mike, Stephanie Edgar has a plus 130 inside the distance line,
which is rare for women's MMA.
Which is higher than Arosa, than Johnson, higher than Collier or Badai. It's better than Song Yadong. It's better than Trey Waters. It's better than Cortez Acosta. It's better than Padilla. It's better than Journey Newson. Right? So put that into perspective, that Stephanie Edgar has almost as good of an inside the distance line as Rogério de Lima. Almost as good of an inside the distance line. Has a better one. If you think Song Yadong is going to knock Ricky Simon out, well, Edgar has a better chance based on the betting line to win inside the distance. It probably won't be via knockout. It'll be via submission. So, like, when people are looking at Borrello and Vieira going, oh, minus 130 inside the distance. Like, plus 130 is a 43% implied probability. So, like, she's going to be less than 43% owned.
I'm looking at the 10% difference less for Edgar compared to the Borrello and Vieira's and thinking she can make this thing look easy and destroy Vieira and Borrello. About 5 minutes until lock. What do you think? We let these folks go off and make their lineups before lock.
Better. You got 4.5 minutes left. You got it.
Fingers crossed. Again, this show brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're in a legal sports betting state, take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get a bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. Blender, final thoughts here. We're gonna take it out.
I hope
play whoever you want.
Well, to me, either I'd be fine. Like, these are the types of slates where if I don't have the winner, I want a train to win. Right? It's one of those slates where, hey, if that lineup that's duped 174 times wins, it's like, I know I would have never made that lineup, and everyone that gets $800 or $200, whatever the hell it is, good luck to them. That's fine. It's that long-term profitable to do that. I hate the slates where it's like, oh, there's a unique first, second, third, and fourth place or something, and I just don't have those lineups. Like, so I'm rooting for either one of
Blender's
my
still top 10.
Well, yeah, no, I'll take
You're
a
in contention.
unique third today. I'll take that. But I don't. Yeah, the likelihood of a unique lineup winning is low. I'll take it under 5. I'll take under 7 or something like that. But if not, if I don't have that lineup, good. I won 170 weight die. So it's like if I'm going to lose most of my money, it's going to be on a slate where just okay, I was just never going to win that.
No, I 100% agree. And there's ways to be unique when you have a value in Newsom. You can just be different immediately off the bat.
You know what I can't wait for? Because I have so much of him. Rogerio de Lima, right? Gets a takedown 40 seconds in, ground and pound, goes for a submission, right? Something like that, doesn't get it. And then round 2 starts and he gets knocked out. I mean, but the upside's in the first round. I'm going to play him. I mean,
that's the problem.
Lima's not someone that dude, it's an 11 fight card. You have to play people that you don't like playing. I mean, this card is full. This card is full of people that I look at on other slates going, I don't know if I could play that guy. And now you have all of them.
Oh, yeah. It's watered down. It's not fun to watch. Next week, though, you will have 14 fights. You will have a 5-round title fight with Aljamain Sterling versus Cejudo. They actually make the Bilal Muhammad, I'm seeing this, a 5x5. We might have 2 5-round fights next week, Blender. That would be even more fun. Oh, God, yeah. Definitely for a contender fight in that one. And the more fighters, the more opportunities we have. Make sure you get your lineups in. Everything's status quo with 2 minutes to go. We will see you guys next week for another live MMA Crunch Time.